Welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pone ain't drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message, hit the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi-Pone Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try and force in some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
And we are live with episode 465 of the Trinity Force Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to this Friday as you're listening, or Wednesday if you're watching live, Mondays and Wednesdays at twitch.tv/TForce Podcast. My name is Adam Ponophobia Coxwell, joined by Dom Santana, Punch, and Moon. Hello, everybody.
What's up?
Howdy.
Hello.
Todd, you're not in a closet anymore.
He's not, but he's also muted on
He is muted.
the appear.in, so we heard him.
No.
That was weird. I don't know why I was muted. You're right. I'm not in a closet. Just mentally in a closet, I guess.
Well,
Aren't we all?
Some of us try to stay out of the closet because we have too much to do and not enough to hide from. So let's talk. Everyone just kind of stares on.
yeah, there's some crickets.
Whatever you say.
We are not.
We're rolling hot tonight.
As always, with every podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening to us, as I say every week. Patreon.com/TForce Network. $10 a month gets you a Champion Select or 2 podcasts. $25 a month gets you a replay review. We can do those every 2 weeks. So if you send me one right before the new patch is going to hit on that Wednesday, I'm not going to be able to do it. So don't send me a replay review on a Tuesday. And
Don't do it.
You can send me one on Monday. I'm more than likely will get it done. But yeah, the best time for you to do it is to play the weekend after the patch and then send it to me then that next week, and we'll get it out to you. So $25 a month. We've had lots and lots of good feedback about that, and they've helped out a lot of people. And so tonight we are going to dedicate this podcast to you listeners as we talk about how to win as a top laner, and then we're going to roll into some listener questions that you guys all sent into us. So we're going to jump right into how to win as a top laner. Santana, Punch, and Moon are here this week because they are our resident top laners, with Santana playing only Chase, maybe a little GP in the previous season.
I actually haven't touched GP in a long time because my jungler never knows what the fuck to do with a GP top lane, and then I just die like 6 times in lane. So it's just not worth it anymore.
And I don't actually win a top lane, so I don't know how much I can contribute to this topic today.
what are you talking about? The Bronze Logic crew, like when they want to win, they put you on. What is it? Kale, Aurelia.
Camille. It's Camille.
Yeah, I mean, like one champion. It's like, okay, guys, we're tired of losing, so Punch. I guess you're playing Camille.
She's so fun, though.
She is pretty fun. But I want to play Kled, and I just lose with Kled, so that's a problem.
Pretty much only know how to win on a top lane, so it's good that we're
There you go.
not.
There you go. This is a
would not
DJ
be-
Khaled song for you.
I actually referenced that earlier today at work, so I guess just
Small world.
all world, right?
Or big
Good song.
artist.
Either or.
Right, either or works. Well, let's talk about top lane. Are we gonna go over all of top lane, kind of like do the basics thing, or are we just gonna talk
God, there's so much.
a wider brush?
We got an hour, boys.
We
so
got an hour.
All right. Well,
longer than most
here,
games of League of Legends.
here's how we'll start it. Santana, Punch, and Moon. In your own words, what is your goal when you go in the top lane within the first 10 minutes of the game?
Not die.
That's a great goal.
It kind of depends who I'm playing, honestly. I feel like your goal in the first 10 minutes is based on how your character scales. A lot of characters scale up, so you want to farm and play safe. A lot of other characters scale down, so you need to get an advantage early. It just kind of depends who you're picking.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's going to be situational, right? Like, if I'm playing Shen, depending on the matchup, I actually can win that level 2 or 3. But if it's some matchups, I don't want to try and be aggressive on Shen, and I'm just going to sit and farm until, I hit the split pushing late game where I'm just moving and then TPing on my team. But if I'm playing something like Pantheon, yeah, I'm taking Ignite top lane, and I'm going to kill you level 2, and then I'm going to kill you level 3, and then I'm going to kill you level 4, and then hopefully end the game before we get to level 16.
I would say that's like a good point that Santana brought. Like, he mentioned the Ignite. Like, your summoners have a lot to do with how you play the first 10 minutes, too.
right? I mean, a lot of the time, in like 90% of matchups, for the most part, you're taking TP, but there's specific champions like Pantheon that will take Ignite because they have the global presence already in their kit. Shen used to take Ignite in some lanes way back in the day, talking like Season 3, because he had ult for everyone. You see it sometimes on Talon, but for the most part, TP is kind of the staple, even after the repeated nerfs we've seen patch after patch and year after year.
Yeah, which is a disappointment, really, I think, because
I agree. Like, I feel like the game would be a lot more interesting if you weren't always forced to take TP. I think you could do some.
Oh, that's what you guys were. That's what you meant. I thought it was. I thought you were getting at like, oh no, TPE has been over nerfed. I'm like, no, I remember when TPE wasn't heavily nerfed. It was bot lane was terrible.
Right.
I used to have a lot more fun when both lanes would take Ignite. It was like man mode, you know, like.
Right.
I would say the one advantage to TP being in the game is that there are characters who can't lane without it. But other than that, I mean, it's really for competitive play, I think. I think if you're in solo queue, especially below like the super high tiers, just learn to play with Ignite and you will seriously, like if you get good with Ignite, you're going to dominate everybody who's at your skill level who doesn't take it.
Right. I mean, it's a combat summoner. You're up one on them in lane. The thing I would argue against, well, actually, I would argue for Ignite is, or just even anything, exhaust. If you want a secondary movement speed summoner, it forces you to learn lane management and wave management a lot better because you don't have the freebie of I can just TP back to lane and not miss anything. You have to be very cognizant of where your lane is at all times. And because you don't have TP, it's well, if this wave gets pushed into me, am I losing all of it? Will I get back in time? Is it a cannon wave? Whereas TP is just like, oh, I got chunked out in lane, I come back, and oh hey, I missed a melee creep. Oh no.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Teleport is also kind of like a team-wide strategy. I know my team on Mondays, they play around me having teleport, and they often ask me if teleport is up because they need to know that so that they know if I can get to them if a fight breaks out, or if they can send me to go split push a lane so that I can get to them if they want to challenge another objective. If I don't have TP, I let them know right off the bat because that kind of changes our game plan.
Punch, you're really, really good at using teleport even when you're not in the fully coordinated, like the full team situation. I've duoed with you quite a bit at this point. You're really good. I mean, granted, I guess we're on comms, but you're usually like, I'm going to come down right now, and then, like something happens right away. But you're usually looking to do something with it. Whereas I think a lot of solo queue players get in the mindset of, I'm only going to use teleport to get back to my lane. I'm not going to do anything else anywhere on the map. And in that regard, it's like, well, it's nice to travel quickly, but that combat summoner could probably have done more from you, and you're going to have it more frequently.
Right. For the most part, first TP will be back to lane. That's just kind of how it goes.
Because you'll have it up again by the time you actually need it for a mid-game objective or something like that.
Right. Sure. For the most part, like a level 4 TP bot lane is probably not going to net you anything unless they blew both flashes or something like going forward. I notice as you climb higher and higher, teams will be more communicative and play around TP more. You'll see more deeper wards on the bot side. You'll see more like flank wards for TPs. But for a lot of the time, especially when I used to play down in like silver, gold, and when I was climbing up through there, you just never have a ward that you want to TP to because your teammates aren't thinking about it, right? Unless you're telling them, hey, can you guys get me a deep ward? It's something you have to keep in mind. I had a game yesterday that unfortunately got cut because I lagged out halfway through, but I was playing Kassadin, and it's a mid lane champion, but he takes TP, and I was bot side, split pushing, I teleport up, and no one had a ward for their by Baron, and we lost a 4v5 because I was splitting, and I was like, but guys, we would have won that because I was like 5-1 at that point. We ended up winning the game anyway, but it's those kind of things that I do and don't like TP. I have this very strong love-hate relationship with it.
So just to like throw it out there, like don't assume that the deep ward wasn't there Like there's a decent chance that the ward was there, and then they removed it. No, I'm just saying like in all situations. One of the reasons I rush Sightstone is so that I can get a my sweeping lens, and so that I can remove those deep wards to make it a lot harder for the enemy to teleport down to bot lane.
What I want to add to the conversation on TP is that if you, as somebody who takes Ignite into people who take TP a lot, when you have the pressure of Ignite, if you play really aggressive, you can force them to use their teleport consistently back to lane. And because the Ignite cooldown is shorter than the teleport cooldown, there's this window that you have where you can pressure them even if you don't get the kill with Burning Ignite. Force the TP so they can't make a play on the map, and then you have this small window where your Ignite's back up, where you can kill them, and if you do during that window when their TP's down, they become super far behind because they have no combat summoner to come back into the game with.
Right. And one of the things that kind of plays into that, if both of you have TP or whatever, and you get first blood on your top lane opponent, and they blow flash, this is more on the junglers, but if your junglers kind of near topside and they just TP'd back and you have a huge wave crashing, dive that. Because if he just TP'd back and has a huge wave at his tower, if he dies again, that lane's over. Because for top lane, it's not so much about like, yeah, you're hitting power spikes off gold, but a lot of it is just making sure you're still in XP range and hitting levels. Because if you fall behind one level at top lane, or if, God forbid, you fall behind 2 or 3, it is very, very hard to dig that out unless you're getting constant attention from both mid and jungle topside to like help you dig out.
Yeah, down 1 level is like you can't trade anymore, and down 2 levels is like you die if you get close. Yeah.
Well, we were talking.
I mean, it quickly snowballs from one to from the first to the next.
If you're watching the LCS at all, you'll see it a lot. You'll see what Santana talked about a lot of times, where they'll try to build up a wave, crash it, and then dive the top laner with that big wave there for the extra damage. And that's something with the top laners. Every lane needs to learn this, and it's not the top lane specifically needs to learn it more than anybody else, but top lane needs to learn wave management and zoning techniques, because a lot of times when you make that big tower push, as any champion, you want a cannon minion to come with you to help do that extra damage and be tankier. And if you are at all able to zone them off a couple creeps, or even zone them off a wave and allow the wave to slowly build up as you last hit, you can throw essentially 2 waves with a cannon, and one of those waves having a cannon minion in it, into the turret, and now they are forced to eat trade from you while they're CSing, and their turret is taking mega damage. So they have to make like the decision, how do they want to play this out? And there's so many factors to that can lead to kills. Something that I see happen a lot is that when I'm doing replay reviews, people don't respect minions, and we've talked about this in the past, where they will go in a full trade when the enemy has more minions than they do, and they die because they took all that minion damage. Now that happens when you get that turret dive as well.
Yeah,
I mean, and
God.
The funny part is that you'll run into a lot of solo queue junglers who'll see the wave pushed up to the opponent tower and think, okay, well, I can't do anything here, so I guess I'm going to just go back into my woods or something like that. And it's like, no, that's a really good opportunity for you.
Right, you'll see it a lot if you watch any of the high elo streamers, especially the top laners. If there's a huge wave crashing, and sometimes you'll see the jungler come up and start hitting the tower to scare that lane opponent off the tower and sometimes out of XP range, because again, it's just the threat of being there, right? But you mentioned laning on the minion aggro. Todd, you probably see this a lot because you play Garen and you probably play into a lot of ranged characters, unfortunately. How many times have you seen just a ranged champion auto attack you and then they lose the trade because they took all the caster damage and they didn't pay attention?
It depends on the size of the wave, but yeah, it definitely has happened. Actually, what's really funny is, and if you know that you're in a situation like that, if you just let them hit you once or twice more, those minion damage is really going to add up quickly.
Right.
And then you haven't burned any of your abilities, so you can just like flash all in off that. There's a lot of like little mind game stuff you can do if you get really, really good at like picking up on those wave management mechanics.
I call that the classic Victor mistake, because my brother, who's an AD carry main, he and I used to duo a lot and everything. And when he was first learning AD carry, he would like make these really aggressive plays, and then he would eat so much minion damage that we ended up just going, way behind as a result of all of it and everything. And he finally picked up on what he was doing, and so he stopped going for those types of plays when they had a whole bunch of minions with them. But he just was not paying attention to it.
Since we're on the topic of laning, pretty common knowledge, but for those of you that are new and still just getting into the game, auto attacks will draw minion aggro. Abilities will not draw minion aggro. So, for example, I play Jace a lot. Jace, if he autos, obviously draws aggro. If he uses his W to reset his auto, draws aggro. If he Qs somebody with either range form Q or melee Q, he will not draw the aggro. So use that to your advantage, especially if you're trying to push waves in. Look for opportunities to kind of get your abilities both to hit the minions and the champions, so you can end up just slowly poking people out or winning trades.
Do you know how the minions think about aggro when multiple parties are involved?
When multiple champions are involved?
It's usually just
Let's say-
whoever's closest, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, let's say like both junglers happen upon top at one time. One person autos and gets one person crowd controls, gets the minion aggro. I'm sorry, one person crowd controls, one person autos, gets the minion aggro, and then the other person attacks the other champion. What do the minions start doing then?
Oh boy.
It's whoever's closest.
Yeah, it defaults the closest, I
Okay.
believe. I would have to play 2v2s and test that out for sure, but for the most part, it tends to default to just hey, there's a champion right next to me. I'm gonna hit that because it's right there.
And I'm sure it's not that critical.
Right.
I think the only exception to that, if it didn't work that way, it would be that whoever drew aggro first, it would just stay on that person until they weren't in range anymore.
And that was my thinking because that's how the towers work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But honestly, I don't know which one.
But yeah, you mentioned it. It's probably not gonna matter in the long run. Oh man, because I was so close to that champion, I took an extra 10, 20
Damn it,
damage.
Kha'Zix, why didn't you micromanage
Right.
your movement for that minion damage?
Now we're getting now we're just nitpicking everything at that point.
Well,
It's
okay,
yeah, well,
so-
all right, let's
Minion
narrow it back.
behavior.
Yeah.
Minions walk when they find several enemy units. They choose their target using a priority system that follows this order: enemy champions attacking an allied champion, enemy minions attacking an allied champion, enemy minions attacking an allied minion, enemy turrets attacking an allied minion, and so on and so forth. So the minion chooses the target based on the priority list that they have. So it would go to the closest target that is attacking an allied minion or allied champion.
Okay. There's your answer, Dom.
There you go.
There's more to it.
Of course there is.
Because
League is
minions also reevaluate their target every few seconds. So if you attack and then run into a bush and come out of it, it's going to attack it's going to go back to attacking the minions unless there's more damage being thrown around and attacking allied champions, and then they're going to start attacking the enemy champion. That is really hard to think about, and it's really easy, but in the moment it's hard to think about to talk about. So yeah, when it comes to big trades, minions aren't that big a deal, but at the same time, if you're playing bottom lane, I know there's been a lot of times we'll start trades and whatnot, and I have to back off the trade when the jungler comes in because I'm eating so much goddamn minion damage to initiate.
That's because you're always the first one to actually get an auto attack off. It's not for the jungler or the support's lack of effort, but they're throwing a spell before they're throwing an auto. So
right.
To give another illustration of how important minion or taking minions into account is, someone in Discord asked earlier today strategies for dealing with Nasus, and of course my go-to against Nasus at the moment is Kled. And I made sure to ask him first. Do you have any intention of playing Kled? Because you kind of need to have some interest in playing a champion if you're going to use them to counter someone else. And he said yes. So then I spewed forth my diarrhea of how to play Kled. But the strategy I used is actually heavily based on minion aggro. Level 1, you have to have a minion advantage, and once you get that minion advantage, meaning you've killed more enemy minions than Nasus has killed of your minions, you're able to use Q and then just auto attack him. And then you will win that trade. You will get him below 50%, so long as you're not eating a ton of minion damage. That's very important. After level 1, you do not auto attack Nasus unless your W is up, because you're going to eat too much minion damage. Mm-hmm. So that means use Q, which will not draw minion aggro. And I made all of this clear. You can use Q as much as you want, and you can stick next to Nasus and wait for that second hit of Q, because none of that will draw minion aggro. But the auto attacks alone will not be worth it, because you will take minion damage. You need to have W active for that auto attack to be worth it. So again, just another example of how in-depth top lane strategies can become solely based around minion damage.
Yeah.
Do not ignore them.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
increasingly
a
the
really
man
good
that
point.
top lane is like the hardest lane to play.
Well, the reason it's the hardest lane to play for a lot of people is there's a ton of matchups. It's like mid lane, but mid lane tends to kind of devolve into like a set of like 5 or 6 very common picks, and then you've got some other things. But most of the mid laners play pretty similar. Top lane's just got this wide plethora of tanks and pseudo assassins and ranged mixed hybrid champions like Gnar and Jace. And then you've got the
characters who can be built in multiple different ways, and you have to
Right.
like this is like more than one dimension to like even some of the same matchups.
right, like for example, Jarvan. You could build Jarvan with Ghostblade for full lethality and one-shot people, or you can do this more common build right now, which is like Black Cleaver into Titanic into tank, and you're not gonna know until you're maybe 10 minutes into the game and he's got like a first component item done or a first item done, and it changes the way you play. It's just so many things, so many little nuances that you only get by playing.
And I would say that it's the most unforgiving lane because it's the long lane where you're solo and all the early objectives are on the other side of the map. So you get very little help from your team.
Right. If you're getting focused top lane by a jungler and you've blown flash and you're down 2 kills, it's, again, I've mentioned it earlier, it's really hard to dig out. But this goes back to like beginning and laning. You need, one of the most important things for top lane is you need to figure out timing on warding and where to ward.
And the worst part is that if you're getting camped top lane, in some respects, you're doing things right. It means you are drawing like jungler. But it really does. That you're drawing jungler focus onto that part of the map and allowing your jungler to have free reign everywhere else. I'm not talking like one gank. I'm talking like just repeated ganks over and over on you. For some reason, they think you're the threat and your jungler has free reign everywhere else. Whether or not that gets put to use is,
That's my point. It's
you
like,
know,
well, is my
game
team
to
doing
game,
anything with
but-
that? Usually no.
yeah. But in a vacuum, you're technically doing something really right there.
And with all that being said, because of how many different matchups there are and how the same matchup can go different ways multiple games based on builds or who gets the early kill or whatnot, and warding and all of this crap, yeah, you're going to have a lot of trial and error in top lane, and you're going to fail a lot. I failed a lot while learning top lane.
He still
Even if I had I failed all the time. Even when I had success against my lane opponent, when I first started learning top, I would get ganked all the time because I would ward at the wrong times. So don't get disheartened because there's a lot to learn. And again, trial and error is the way to learn it. You're gonna have a champion like Darius. Like Darius is a common pain point for people. You're gonna have champions like that where you just don't know what to do. So you got to keep trying new things to find something that works for you. So just don't lose hope when you've got a bad game or when you feed the Darius and you're like, oh man, I suck at top lane, I got to change. just try something different next time. Just keep trying things until you find something that works.
Yeah.
It's practice. You learn as you play more. For example, the amount of times I got cheese level 1 by Darius because he was in my closest bush and I just never checked it or warded it or played around that. It happened about 5 or 6 times before I'm like, I probably should just not walk near that at level 1 and just
Goddamn
wait.
Darius.
But wait for him to show in lane. It's things like that.
When I play top lane, if I'm not standing up in the top river bush waiting for the enemy, or if I'm not standing in lane waiting for my enemy, I'm taking the long path around to go back to my top lane through my lane because I'm not going to get
Yes.
teased out.
And that's really the smart thing to do. And like I hate to say that because like I really like it when people face check the brush, but
Just a league tip in general. Don't face check brushes. It's never
yeah,
worth it.
It's never worth it, dude. You just get killed.
Dude potential.
Right. I think one of the other important things for top lane is always asking yourself, especially in certain cases, like if I go for this CS, how likely is it that I die? Or if I walk up here, how likely is it that I die? Do I have ward coverage if I try to play aggressively here? I don't. How likely is it that I'll die? I always go back to the fact that for top lane, just play safe enough. Like, don't do, if you haven't seen the jungler for 5 minutes, you have no vision topside, and you try to all in your top laner, and the jungler just shows up, that's on you.
Anytime. Okay, so how likely is it that I'm gonna die? It is constantly going in my head, basically before I make any decision. And so here's some code if you're ever listening to us while we stream, or for everybody on the show here. Anytime I ask somebody, why did you do that? What I'm actually asking is, what made you think you weren't gonna die when you did that?
I've definitely done that on stream a couple times where I'll be talking it out and be like, all right, so if I play up here right about now, jungler could be, oh, yep, I'm dead. All right, yeah, saw that coming. And I just refuse to learn. But yeah, it's
bringing this conversation back to just the initial point about the summoners. If you're new to the top lane, TP is going to give you that safety to learn the lane to recover from those mistakes. And on the topic of getting ganked, if you have Ignite, there are a lot of situations where you can just go balls out and you can go 2v1 and you can actually trade or sometimes even get away, or depending who you're playing, even 2v1 by yourself.
Yeah, I've definitely done that more of my fair share on Jace, where they botch a gank or they do a terrible 2v1 dive, and it's just like, I didn't really do much, but they just kind of mess it up themselves. And again, a lot of times it's just make less mistakes than your opponent, and you'll end up winning more than losing.
Easier said than done.
Of course, it's easier said than done, but it's fixing little things like just warding. You know what? Our weekly challenge. It's right there on the screen. Buy a control ward. Just do it.
I forgot to talk
It doesn't
about
matter
the
if it gets
weekly
instantly
challenge.
cleared. Just do it.
That's you know what, I did forget about talking about the weekly challenge on Monday because we did the mental health episode. Right. So, well, yeah. Why don't we just talk about that real quick? The weekly challenge. The weekly challenges. I know we talked quite a bit about top, and it's really general advice because it is, after all, we are a podcast, and there's just 100 different champions up there. But we wanted to give you guys a good starting point from each lane, so you understand where you're going to be and where you're going. But the weekly challenges is something that I had started doing for you guys to try to get better at the game. And I'm sorry if a week gets dropped here and there, but you know, we're going to keep trying to get them going. Plus you have a couple other ones to keep working on from the past. And I hope those weekly challenges have been helpful to you. And I haven't heard, sorry, I went a little close to the microphone. I haven't heard any feedback yet from anybody out there doing them. But well, I mean, I think Punch and maybe even Santana had mentioned somebody doing it in Discord.
Yeah, I've heard it from the Discord a couple times, especially the health pot one, where people are like, "Yeah, I made sure I popped my health pot, and I live with 4 HP," and I'm like, "Gold star for you."
That's what we wanted.
Yep.
Right. That's the point of the
Now
weekly
you
challenge.
understand.
I lived with 23 HP the last time we played by popping a health potion. So, and I'm being mindful of those. This week's weekly challenge is every time you recall, purchase a control ward, because if you go look at your OPGG end of game stats, a lot of people don't buy mini control wards. You might buy one or two. I went back and I looked at it the last game that I played, which was Monday evening, and Sean purchased one control ward while everybody else purchased at least 3 outside of the support.
And it's not uncommon to see 0.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy didn't buy any.
I'm guilty of this too. I do it every now and then, but a lot of the time it happens because my back timings are awkward and I have like triple longsword and no slots in inventory.
Yeah,
It's like, oh.
I was just gonna say, like, I struggle with that too. I usually buy 1 or 2, but by like 12 or 15 minutes, my inventory is full.
Which is a point that just to make in the later game, sell your Doran's item for
Right.
pink wards. It's
No.
Yes.
Keep the Doran's item.
that Doran
No.
shield is not helping you at 35 minutes, Todd.
Dude, the Doran shield is 80 health, dude. It's so efficient on Garen.
And I could make the argument that the control ward that your team is lacking is just as, if not more, efficient. So
Garen is
I
the
would-
control ward. It doesn't matter.
I would guess I average like 6 control wards a game, maybe 7.
And you can buy multiple control wards too. You can have 3 in your inventory at one time. So if you want to sit on them, I generally buy 1. I think my average is probably 3 a game as a marksman.
And don't
After I
think 2 at a time makes sense.
yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm a support. After I hit my tier 2 support item, it's usually like I try to run around with a 3 stack.
And don't be scared to move your pink ward, even if it's been sitting. If
do
it's
it
been
all the
sitting
time.
there for like 10 minutes, that means it's probably not seeing anything at that point. I know a lot of top laners will leave their pink ward in like one of those bushes up there and then never move it. I know this because I do it, and
Same.
just just as the game goes on, you're going to have to change your warding patterns because you're pushing different objectives. You're pushed back into your jungle and you need the clear vision. You're pushed up into their jungle and you need the clear vision. You need to see a twitch. It happens.
I mean, don't undervalue just like being able to throw down, having a ward available so you can throw it down in the middle of a fight because they're in the brush and you need to see them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
a control
having
ward
a
will
pink
do that.
ward
They're not going to take the time to kill that thing at that point. Or if they do,
Control
hey, free
ward,
kill
right.
for you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like free damage. I'll take it.
Yeah, having a control ward, so like to kind of tie back to top, having a control ward in one of the top bushes, normally the top tri bush or the river bush, that's great during laning phase so long as you can control it, because that kind of cuts off an avenue for the jungler to gank you. But once the laning phase is over, that doesn't really do a whole lot. No real point to have that pink ward there anymore. So yeah, move it somewhere else.
So it's not even a great split pushing ward because the vision you see by the time they're up to you, they're already so close that you're probably dead anyway, which is why a lot of the time I don't like warding river bush. I try to push just my ward in general closer to where Baron spawns.
Right.
Because that way you're covered
I agree.
if they're coming up through river. Also, if they're taking Blast Cone.
That
that
is
way-
a good point.
Yeah,
but
and that way, the only other bush you really need to worry about is like corner bush, the tri bush in top lane.
what
So
really
It
sucks,
depends on what side you're on, right? But for the most part, those are my two go-tos, just because it covers the most area while leaving very little blind spots, unless they have some crazy mobility like Kane or something.
Jarvan.
I really
Jarvan.
don't like to ward the river bush because I feel like it forces you to use both your wards at the same time if you ward like where the crab is, because you need one in tri bush, otherwise you don't know when the jungler has left the river bush. So you don't, unless you see them somewhere else on the map. So like it forces you to play safer a lot longer than I'm really comfortable with.
Sure.
And that's
I agree for invisible wards, but I'd like to ask you, so if you guys are on blue side,
Okay, blue side.
where would you put your control ward as a top laner?
What side of the map is blue? I honestly.
Oh, close side.
Left, bottom left.
Oh, bottom left. I would probably put mine in the tri bush most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, if I have lane control, I'll put it into their tri-bush. If I'm worried about, like, if I'm playing GP, I'll generally put my control ward in the bush closest to turret, that are the other tri-bush, so I can see if I'm getting doe from behind. But I generally won't pink that river bush unless I have, like, complete full control of the lane and I'm not worried about it.
On blue side too, when you're under your tower, I do like to ward the tri bush near your turret so that you can watch those dives.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep,
I was
it's
going to
important.
ask about that, unless Punch, you had some more to continue on.
Just one more thought on where to put a pink ward if you're on blue side. If I have more time to go back to top lane, meaning the enemy isn't pushing into my tower, I will kind of make a pit stop near mid and place a pink ward closer to mid.
Because
Closer
my
to the
mid laner
entrance of
never
the enemy
calls me
yeah, it covers that. It watches for the enemy mid laner to come top. It also watches the jungler to gank mid from that side. So you're kind of helping out both people there.
If the crab's down, I like that ward. But I normally, if I'm blue, I normally put my pink in the river bush because I expect them to want to put their ward in the river bush on purpose.
That's fair. That works too. And if we're getting real frisky and we're moving around, I will also pink top of red or of red buff if I'm blue side, because a lot of times the jungler never checks that, and it gives so much information on pathing.
Well,
You're talking about the one not where red buff spawns, but like across.
Oh yeah, the one that's closest to Barren Wall. So if you know the like kind of cone-ish shape of red buff pit, it's that
banana
one
bush.
that's closest to Barren. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking that one. I was thinking the one closer to Krugs. Like,
Oh, you're talking the one that's not connected to red buff pit, but it's got that wall
it's on
there.
the other side of it, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
no,
like
that's a good ward spot too.
I've seen like even in competitive, even pros forget to check that brush.
Those
Right.
wards last so long.
well, let's talk about. So one other thing to warding in the top lane, since we're talking about that quite a bit, is if we are blue or red side and we can get either of our tri brushes warded, because
Sure.
both sides have tri brushes, right? And you're being consistently pushed to your tower, do you find yourself using your yellow ward to ward your lane brush, your closest lane brush?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, and like
Always.
I try to get, if I'm getting pushed in, if I can somehow push back, I will try and ward that like middle bush that's in the middle of the lane. That way I can see if jungler's coming up through there, so I have a little more time to react. But yeah, I really do try to keep that in mind, because again, the amount of times I've died where I'm like, oh, they backed, no big deal, and then there's like 4 people in that bush, and it's like, oh, no, they did not back, and oh, there's an ADC and a support here now. That's great.
What is the bot lane doing top? This never happens.
What is my Mia from bot lane?
I used to
Exactly.
do the
We probably just called it, but they recalled it, so you didn't think much.
Right.
There's also that little ward trick where if you're on blue side, you can walk through the tri-bush and you can ward that river brush from over the wall.
Yeah,
right.
I like to do that when I'm blue side and the jungler pressured me and I can't like ward it safely from river. I'll actually walk back behind my turret and drop it there.
The number of times I've caught the jungler still sitting there
Right.
while I'm being pushed into my turret. Like, dude, I know you're still there. Get out of here. Go gank someone else. Jesus.
And then they back on the ward, and you just like pop them with an ability and waste more of their time. It's like, you just saw the ward down. What
But
did you think?
at that point, you gotta have a big smile on your face.
All right, you lost 30 seconds here. Great.
I've actually never been able to do that.
Oh, I do it all the time on Jace just because I can like pop them with an EQ, and it's like, oh, you lost a quarter of your HP.
Todd
Gary
doesn't
Lewis.
actually know what poke is.
Yeah, I don't know what a ranged ability is.
Your ultimate's somewhat range if they flash after it.
Yeah,
Oh.
if they flash after, like it's huge.
By the way, if you guys ever want to learn how to ward the tri-brush blue side bot lane from the Dragon Pit, or better known as the Scara ward, just Google Scara ward tutorial, because you'll find at least 15 videos in the top Google search.
And that works for both sides,
That's
top
great.
and bottom. You can do it from Baron Pit, you can do it from Dragon Pit. It's just, little things like that are just good things to learn, and things you can very easily practice in the practice tool is
Right.
just finding those exact spots where if I hit it here, my ward goes there.
You can do it mid lane, thick wall into the tiny little. So if you're red side on the right hand side, that little strip, a brush that is right
Yeah.
next to the lane, you can actually throw your ward in the big, because it's like a big chunk of terrain. You can throw your ward in the big chunk of the terrain, and it goes into that brush,
Yeah, for sure.
which is really nice. I do it a lot of times blue side. While we're running by, I'll just drop it into the terrain and get it into that bush, because people try to death camp that bush.
So we've been talking a lot of laning and a lot of warding and early game stuff. Todd, when you're transitioning from early game to mid game, late game, what are your goals for the most part? Are you thinking, is it matchup dependent? Is it how the game's
Wait,
going?
can I answer this one?
What's
'Cause-
on your mind as soon as you hit that?
Because
like,
Todd's
I know what his
answer
goal
is
I know
Todd's
what
goal
I'm
is to
talking
sit in a
general.
bush.
If we're
and
playing
wait.
at like D2,
Yeah.
and then you're even in lane or
Oh,
whatever.
come on,
what-
Todd does not change. Todd's goal in the mid to late game is
I'm
sit in a
trying,
bush,
okay? I'm
be a
trying.
pink ward, and kill whoever walks in there.
His goal is just to kill
If
everybody.
we were to make a T-shirt for Todd, it would say, "Do you see that champion?"
Not anymore.
And the back would say, "Not anymore," as the bush has like the Garen sword sticking
He's
out
so
of it.
patient. He's so patient. Like he will wait for minutes.
Yo, dogs, you
He'll
see
just
that
sit there
champion?
waiting. Someone's gonna come by.
So
Someone's
bad
gonna
example, but it's pushing the discussion forward.
But
I like the camp.
to take that out, let's say if I wasn't playing Garen, how would I play the game? I would probably prioritize all of the outer turrets immediately. I would try to take the top one, and then if the bot turret was still there, I would try to trade off, and then maybe split push that down. Dragons are really important early game, depending on which dragon it is. So if you can't take the turret, that's kind of what you should default to. Other than that, good strategies for transitioning to mid game is if you have a lead and your other lanes don't, you can roam down from top to mid without using teleport. And if you have to help bottom, then you can use TP.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could, another option for helping bottom is you can, after a back, you just run bottom and use your TP to get back to top after the gank.
I like
try to do a
that
lane gank
maneuver.
bottom.
That's my favorite maneuver. Because they never
Doesn't
see
work
it
for all
coming.
champions,
They never
but
see that
yeah,
coming.
It's a common thing for Pantheon, just to, like, he'll first back, he has 6, and he'll just go bot and then like double kill. And it's like, guys, what were you expecting?
But again, you need teleport for that. So if you're playing Pantheon Ignite, not so much.
Sure, you're just snowballing at that point. You don't really care, but
you don't care about bot lane. Screw him.
I mean, Shen gets away with a lot of this too because he gets 2 global abilities, and it's like, oh, well, this is fair.
Yeah, he gets to teleport bot lane and then save somebody, and then he gets to teleport back top. Yeah.
And a lot of those mid-game decisions come down to A, what champion are you playing, and B, what's this game state look like? If you're playing a tank like Maokai, generally you're going to want to get your lane pushed out a little bit, or just in a place where it's going to snowball into a turret and then group with the team. But if you're playing split push Tryndamere, like, you really don't want to group per se, unless you're getting a late flank on the other team.
Honestly, I think if you play a split pusher, there's this thing you can do where if you push the enemy laner in really hard, and if you're stronger than they are, they can't stop you from shoving them in until you get to the turret. Then while there's like 2 or 3 waves built up at their turret and they're farming that, you roam, that's when you roam, and they can't respond. And even in like a team fight situation, even as like a split push character like Trend, and a 5v4, like, it's a big enough of advantage, you would still want to take it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's like a good overall concept to understand about top, is how far away from your lane or your turret you can go under the varying conditions while sacrificing very little in the process.
Yeah. And this back to minions a little bit. Slow push, getting a lane the slow push is very good for setting up objectives. For example, if I'm top lane and Dragon's up in like we'll say a minute 30, I will get the wave to a point where I clear out the backline casters and leave the melees, so that wave is stalled a little bit, and it's going to take time for it to build up. And then when it starts crashing in the top lane on that tier 2, somebody has to go respond to that wave. If they don't, they're losing 400 gold or whatever, and a lot of XP. And if they do respond, then we can get a free objective by having a numbers advantage. It's things like that you have to always be aware of, and just always being aware that you have to manage minions, not perfectly, but well enough that it'll let you do things you normally wouldn't be able to do. Because if you just fast push that lane, well, now it crashed into the tower 30 seconds before Dragon's up, and, well, now everybody's at the Dragon fight.
I'm trying to imagine telling people all this type of stuff in like season 1.
Right, like just going back to there is just like, what do you mean? I can last hit. That gets me.
Where a jungler was optional.
Right. And you had Ashe mid, Ashe TP mid.
The champion pool was
That was a
pretty
great
small.
strat.
Yeah, I mean, you had 40 champions. So
Right. Well, let's jump into some listener questions with the last 15 minutes of the show here. I am not going to jump around because in the last podcast before that, I got yelled at for jumping around all the time because apparently it's not timely to jump around, even though the oldest question is at the bottom of this episode, right at the bottom here.
Well, somebody works really hard on ordering these questions, and it just hurts them when you
all day to prep this document for you, and it's just never good enough for you, Adam. It just never is.
When you just disregard the order of things, everything goes to chaos.
It's like I'm talking to my kids. Jesus Christ. No respect.
I'm imagining my own order as we speak, so.
That's how I do it all the time. So no.
Perfect.
Ben writes in, I've been playing for about a year and decided to play my first placement games, and I lost my first 4. He also won 4. I think he was 8 total, and he said, if I remember correctly. Should I even play?
No, I would have left that. He said it was just 4.
Oh, I thought I read that he went 4 and 4 and then decided to do it. But that would probably make more sense that he was 4. Anyway, I lost my first 4 games. Should I even play any more of them, or should I just save my MMR and wait for next season? I play top lane, mainly things like Connect and Shedding Gangplank. Well, Ben,
play them.
There is
play them.
Whoa, hold on. What the hell? We're all just gonna jump in here? Jesus Christ!
Play them, Ben.
Been gone a while, man.
We just want to attack the question.
Yeah, no. I just want to say the first thing: there's no such thing as saving your MMR. You're not increasing your MMR by not playing, and your MMR does nothing if you don't play. I mean, your rank, if you had a rank, it would decay if you were at the level of which decay mattered, right? But you are not. If you were just played a year ago, you are not likely at the level where decay matters, and you're also not at the level where having MMR really matters either. Like, even if you get placed in Bronze 2, it doesn't matter after a year of playing the game. Not everybody walks out of the gate as being the all-star player that just pops up out of nowhere. You have to build. You have to start somewhere. You have to crawl before you walk. So play your games, suck it up, get placed where you're at, and then get better. Because if you can finish your games and you end up in, say, let's say that you win the next 6 games and you end up in Silver 3, well, you need to push into Gold because you get a free skin and or champion at Gold 5. If I said Gold, I meant Silver. If you place in the Silver, get to Gold, you get that. However, if you place in Bronze, you can write back to us to say, I got placed Bronze 2. Now I'm going to, I want a replay review. So I'm going to go to your Patreon. Or now I want some more advice because I find this happen. And we can build you up and get you to that goal next season. But you have to build the base before we can build the house.
Right. No one got better at anything by not playing the game.
I think people get really, really hung up on their placements, and they like set this expectation for where they should be after placements, and if they don't meet that, then they just want to give up. It's like right after placements, you're going to be gaining and losing so many league points. You can climb really, really quickly if you're better than your placements suggest you are. You can fall really quickly if you are not as good as your placements suggest you are either, and everything. Like your placements. It might feel bad to be placed lower than you think you are, but they ultimately really don't matter because you're going to gain or lose so much LP in the process there.
Yeah. What I would add to that is basically just there's really no point in being afraid of whatever you end up getting ranked as, because you are what you are, and it doesn't matter if the elo says that you're bronze or you're silver or you're gold. You know what I mean? You are your skill level. So you're going to end up where you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And there's there's going to be no other way to know how, where you're supposed to be than to play 50 to 100 games and then find out where you're at.
Right. See, I started this game in season 3 and I finished like silver 1. I did my placements for the next season and I went 1-9. I got placed in bronze 2. I finished that season plat like 2 or something. Right. And yeah, I was kind of pissed. I did pretty terribly in my placements, but you just use that as a point to like, all right, I know I'm better than bronze players or I'm better than silver players. You just have to play the games and grind out.
Dude, I started this podcast at 1250 elo. Like,
for those of you that remember elo,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
I do.
Scrub level when I started making this podcast, and then I worked my way up to platinum and then diamond and everything else. Like, it was a grind, and I made it there, and I learned a lot. I brought you guys a lot of information, but like, all of us have to start somewhere.
Right. And just
I'm largely of the opinion that the placements don't even really matter. That where you're going to be placed is largely determined by where you finished last year and what your hidden elo is. And if you go 0-10 somehow, then maybe you'll get placed a division or 2 below where your MMR is at. Maybe you get placed in silver 5 instead of silver 3. Right. But who cares? Because your end game goal shouldn't be silver 3. Your end game goal should be gold. It should be higher than where you were last year. So who cares how you're doing your placements? It doesn't matter. Just get to where your goal is afterwards. Take the placements out of the way.
Adam and I did every Flex Q placement game together. We did every Flex Q placement game together. The rest of the stuff, there was variation along the way, but he and I were in every single game together for our placements. You placed in what, Gold 3?
Something like that, yeah.
2, something like that. I was in like Silver 3, Silver 2. I was a full division below him, even though we played every single game together. There is a hidden value underneath that is just like going to factor into all of this stuff. And it like, you know.
It has a much higher influence than the placement games themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
If you go 10-0, don't expect to be placed diamond. It's not going to happen.
You can't. Highest you can be placed is plat 1.
Right.
Exactly. So don't expect to be placed diamond.
The only time that'll happen is if you were like previous like high diamond
Challenger.
Masters. Like a fresh account, I think the highest I've ever seen was like you get placed plat 3.
And we're talking fresh account where you're just winning fuckloads of.
Yeah, I'm talking like
games.
Smurfs. I'm talking
And
stuff.
And I'm pretty sure Riot's got something in place to detect Smurf accounts. They seem to be pretty good at picking up when a Smurf account is a higher elo than a fresh account.
Yeah, they do, especially when you're leveling. If people do it through that way, they'll find out real quick, and they'll put you with other Smurfs essentially. So it's kind of more of an even playing
Well,
field.
I'm sure they can detect your IP address.
Yeah, but yeah.
It's
That too.
if they do have an algorithm, it's more complicated than that, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's
What I-
just mouse clicks and shit. Like there's a significant difference about how people play the game.
A good strategy would be make a new account, play like trash on purpose for like 20 games, and then just roll bronzies like all day.
Have you not watched Nightbleed channel? Because that's all that is now.
Right.
No, I don't honestly.
Yeah.
but-
Hey,
I mean-
Todd, I have played on bronze, like legit bronze accounts, and after like I'll go play a normal game with a bunch of bronzies, right? I'll be plat 3, play with like 4 bronzies. So we're playing against silvers and bronze. And after like 2 of those games, suddenly we're playing plats and diamonds because the fucking system figures this shit out that they got a Smurf on the team, and suddenly all of
Shit.
us get thrown in there. Yeah, this system is pretty good about picking that shit
Yeah.
up.
But you mentioned you play top lane, and you know what? Don't try to change anything up. Don't start seeing like, oh, this is flavor of the month or whatever. Stick to your picks. Be consistent with your picks so you learn more about
Yeah.
the matchups and stuff.
And
And
just
you
on
will-
just on his picks, Renekton and Shen are both like really strong right now too.
Right.
So like
They're
that's
good
who you
picks.
Like yeah.
And they're different kind of picks, right? You have this aggressive laner in Renekton who will bully pretty much everything. You have Shen who is a very nice tank pick who scales very well into the late game and just has a nice front line. And Gangplank who just hyper scales. So you have a nice pool to work with. Just stick to mastering those champions. And this just kind of goes for everyone. Pick 1 to 3 champions that kind of have differing playstyles and stick to those so you can focus more on your lane and on the macro and all that. So you learn the game better, and then you will start climbing.
Let's do one more question.
Sure.
Camping Dragon writes, I played quite a bit of Kayn upon release, and something that stood out to me is that his auto attacks felt really nice. What if you built Shadow Assassin Kayn similar to the way Yi is built, with an emphasis on attack speed?
No.
I have nothing to contribute to this conversation.
I would like to say that I've honestly thought that Kayn had the same scaling similarities and weaknesses out of the jungle that Master Yi has.
I think you said as much.
Yeah, like when we talked about Kayn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly have never played him, so I have no idea. I don't necessarily think that he would be good with a bunch of attack speed, but I think you could build him like with some critical strike thrown in. Like I could see like IE and Essence Reaver being good options just because he does weave a couple of auto attacks in. Like the attack speed's not really worth it because between his mobility that takes him out of range of being able to attack, like when he moves through walls, his untargetability that lasts a really long time, like he would lose the value in attack speed. But if you were to like weave in a crit or two, and on top of those huge AD ratios, and then Essence Reaver gives you CDR, which I'm sure is like a really important stat on him, I think there's like room there to build sort of like a melee AD carry, but not necessarily exactly.
You'd have to do it on a top lane because you just wouldn't get the income for jungle for IEER. The problem I have with this is, unlike Yi, who has his ult is, hey, I can't be slowed, so I can always stick to you, and Q puts me right next to you, and I have an on-hit modifier with my W. Kayn really doesn't have
Three
any
of his
those.
abilities like augment his auto attacks.
Right.
They set him up to use auto attacks. Yeah.
Right, and Kayn doesn't really have any of that.
Kayn
yeah,
has
he gets
one in his
from the
passive.
passive, sure.
But it's
But it's
post
not that-
mitigation damage as well, so
Right.
just raw auto attack speed damage isn't going to do as much.
Correct. So he just doesn't stick on his targets as well as a Yi would.
I mean, yeah,
But-
and I don't think that like I said, I don't think attack speed is really the right stat, but I do think AD and crit could work. I mean, we've seen assassins in the past grab Infinity Edge just because with their already huge burst combo, if you just happen to get one crit, it just pushes your damage way over the edge. It's like having another AD ratio. It's honestly a big deal. I mean, I'm not saying go full crit, not saying go IEPD, whatever, but I could see IE and Essence Reaver being something you could pick up if you got really ahead. And
It's
and
not
haven't
like
some
the
Canes
damage
built like
from
Triforce
IE.
too? Haven't some Canes built like Triforce? and that's like the same gold cost.
Maybe.
And like Death Dance I've definitely seen Death Dance. And Death Dance is like the same price, damn near. Or actually, isn't it like 100 more than IE now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can
An
build Death
IE?
Dance,
Oh, man.
No, it's
yeah,
less.
IE's 3,400, and I think Death Dance is 35. So like, if
Dance was 32.
is it 32? I might be wrong on that.
We're all searching
It
now.
was. It
No,
was
because,
really
no.
expensive.
Infinity
Standby.
Edge is 3,600. I was like, you guys, they're talking the same. No, Infinity
Yeah,
Edge is
yeah. Death Dance
3,600.
35.
Oh.
It's the IE that's more.
Yeah.
Still more expensive than I thought.
Gotcha. But either way, like if you can build a Death Dance, I feel like you could build an IE, and it's kind of you're going for the RNG, but if you crit, you crit, and like they die. So
Right.
maybe.
I mean, I remember when IE Jace was a common third item because sometimes you would just hit W, crit all 3 times, and delete somebody, which was my favorite time in League.
Fuck that.
It was so because you used to be able to double stack W's too, so you would get 6 autos in a row at 2.5 attack speed.
Yeah, it's like the IE on Garen. It's like the same thing. Like sometimes Q crits, and when it does, all I have to do is ult immediately after. I can skip spin entirely.
Don't forget the laugh. Don't
Yeah,
forget the laugh that comes.
and the mastery emote.
Yep, Control 6 and spam laugh. That's all you. That's all you.
When,
Really
when do you
just
do
wanna win
one-arm
games.
push-ups on their corpse? When is that acceptable?
If I'm tanking enough to survive, like 5 seconds to DM.
Todd, will you play Space Marine Garen for me tonight?
Yeah, dude, I can do that for you.
Thanks, pal.
Aw.
Anybody else have a request?
I'm gonna play because then I'm gonna play I'm gonna play Space Teemo out of mid lane, and we'll just be like
Oh,
the space
no.
team.
No, you're not.
We need
Wait, I
I'll
can
play
Super
Astronautilus.
Galaxy Kindred. It'll
We
be
need
I'll
to
great.
play support Astronautilus.
See,
we need
See?
to steal Legion Lux as well.
I have that. Let's go.
Leave that out of it.
Space comp.
Space team.
Yeah, we can
Let's go.
have the space team. Yeah, dude, let's do that.
Oh my God.
Do you have Super Galaxy Kindred? There we go.
I do have super. I don't like that skin though. I'm gonna be honest. I
Yeah,
think
but
out of bot lane.
Santana's not allowed to play Kindred, so.
my Kindred's better than like your mid lane.
Oh please! Have you not seen my Karthus
Oh,
win
here
rate?
it comes.
Here it is.
I have
Dude,
a
his
winning-
Karth is pretty sick nasty, honestly. Karth
He's
is
going to show you the
nasty.
power.
I don't understand how Adam plays Karthus when he couldn't hit Leona ults back in the day. Like the
I got a lot
circle-
better, motherfucker.
Oh!
The
Since the
circle
last
skill
time-
shots
since-
were too hard for you.
Since the last time that we played together, not counting this season, I've gotten a lot better this fucking game, so you can suck my ass. I think I proved that with my loading screen border, goddammit.
Oh,
Takes-
shit.
Ooh.
There's the call out.
Oh, man. Santana's going to make it this season, and I'm not.
Oh yeah,
so
I'll,
I'm just
I'll
going to
get
flip
there.
it
Just
over.
whether I keep playing Jace or not.
All right, that's all she wrote. Let's do this before we tear the podcast down and apart and ruin friendships. But thanks. No, thanks guys for listening to us this week, and thank you for sticking around with the podcast for so long. We're at 465 episodes. We'll make it to 500
episodes.
eventually, and then I think we've joked about it since episode 100, and then we call it right. Like 500 is just the end all be all.
Then
Where
we
else can
rename
go?
the podcast and call it the Trinity Force Network Podcast.
I don't like the.
Okay, fine.
I mean, it really is the Trinity Force podcast, though. So
Then you can, you know what? You come up with a better name. We'll rebrand. We'll start anew.
well, to be fair, I never actually liked the name Trinity Force podcast, but it was the only name that we came up with, and then it kind of stuck. So here we are. And I've got this thing on my chest showing nipple. On
Oh
screen,
yeah.
so I can't.
Dude, I
really-
know.
Yeah, kind of hard to get rid of that.
Dude, I know a lot about picking names and that you don't like that stick.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Trinity Force podcast. We will see you all on Monday with a Skyen episode talking about the new champion Ornn.
Ooh.
So we see you then, guys. Have a
Sweet.
good evening.
See you
Later.
guys.